Hi, I'm Erin and I work on Classroom here at Bible Project. And this is one of our class sessions that are exploring the book of Genesis. Noah's Ark and the flood story is one of the most well-known parts of the Bible. But how did the biblical authors want us to understand it? And how can we engage in conversations about it today? Let's dive in.
Let us move forward to consider, for a session or so, the Ark. I mean, how have we not talked about the Ark yet? Right? It's the most famous thing in the story. In a way, the Ark is to the Noah story what the fish is to the Jonah story. It's just like, it's a narrative detail that's almost hijacked everyone's attention. Now, the Ark is very important. We're going to dedicate some time to it here. But it's important in ways that are not really why most people might think it's important. Here are the instructions again. They appear in chapter 7, verses 14 through 16. I'll just point some things out here about the design of the instructions. So God says, make for yourself an ark of gopher. Gopher is a species of tree. You will make the ark of reeds, and you will pitch it inside and out with gopher. Gopher is the Hebrew word for pitch. Make it of gopher, pitch it with gopher. Come on. I mean, that's Dr. Seuss style, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's right. Okay. And then you get the 3-step dimensions. It's length, width, and height. Cubits, archaeologists and scholars of the ancient world debate till they're blue in the face what exactly a cubit is. People are somewhere around what we would call a forearm or a foot and a half, something like that. So if you think in meters or if you think in feet, do the math. So notice those dimensions are in the middle. The first is essentially the components, right? The materials, gopher trees, reeds, pitch. Next come the dimensions. Next come the handful of architectural details. A window, a door, and 1, 2, 3. So what is for certain is that Noah had to have more information than this. Are you with me? Yeah. Are you just like, that's not a lot to go off here. A window where? Right? A door, what part of the side? Like how, So clearly the author, the narrator, is very selective in representing the details for us in this kind of summary form. Are you tracking with me? So, if an author has selected what details to tell us and what details not to, that means what is told to us must be really important for more than just blueprint information. There must be some meaning here. So when I first read scholars talking about what I'm about to start talking about, I thought, this is crazy. There's no way this is what's going on. And I no longer think that. So I will let Michael Morales say it for me, since he was one of the first scholars to bring this perspective to my attention. He says, while popular depictions of the ark often mislead one into viewing it as a boat, the vessel, having no, and by saying having no, he means not mentioned. There is not mentioned sails, rudder, oarsmen, etc. This was no boat. And Noah was no captain steering his own fate. Indeed, that the ark was completely given over to the sovereign guidance of God seems to be a primary emphasis of the narrative. The instructions to build the ark in Genesis 6 utilize 3 times as many verses than for describing the flood itself. Yeah? The flood's going to get a verse and a half. The actual description of the waters. demonstrating that the emphasis on the ark itself as a means of deliverance. So what we're interested in is the meaning of this vehicle of deliverance. How would ancient readers have understood the ark? Several considerations lead to the conclusion that the ark was meant to be seen as a symbolic temple. How you doing?
Wow.
So maybe you've thought about this before, maybe you haven't. I'm just going to take you through the steps. This led me down a deep rabbit hole. And it was just one of those things where, wow, the Bible keeps surprising me. Keeps surprising me. In fact, that's about the only thing I come to expect anymore, is that it just keeps surprising me. So let's just start with the word ark, shall we? Yeah? It appears for the first time in chapter 6, verse 14, in ark. It's the Hebrew word teva. Teva. First interesting thing about this Hebrew word is that it's not a Hebrew word. It's an Egyptian word that is spelled here with its Hebrew letters. All languages have this. They're called loan words. English is full of them, actually from the King James Bible. There are multiple places where the King James translators didn't translate a Greek word, like angel or baptism. They just spelled the Greek words with English letters. And so that's why we don't hear the word messenger when we hear the word angel, because that's what the Greek word angelos means, messenger. But because, are you with me? It's a loan word into English. So every language does this, because cultures mix and they borrow each other's words. So interestingly, especially thinking of the Moses connection, the word ark is an Egyptian word that is used in a few different ways. It can either refer to a little box for a house, for an idol, a shrine, or it can refer to a coffin. Come now. This is an older work by a Jewish scholar, Avraham Yehuda, who actually, think about this as a dissertation. He located all of the Egyptian loan words in the Pentateuch, in the Hebrew text of the Pentateuch, and then just did exhaustive research on these words. God bless these people, right? So it's an older work. Here's where he goes with it. He says, whereas the word teva is applied to a ship in the flood story, it is being used in the flood story, he thinks, in its real meaning of chest, holy shrine, or coffin. Such chests generally had the form of a divine shrine and served as housing for an image of the god. And then these little boxes would be dedicated and put in temple shrines and so on. Of numerous shrines that are preserved, several are in stone with different qualities, while some are made of wood. The simpler ones had the form of a longish chest with a small door in the upper part. In the upper portion of the front, for statues of the gods about the size of a child. Such chests or arks are to be found in all Egyptian temples from the earliest to the latest times. Even the later Greek writers noticed these little shrine arks in Egyptian temples. On certain festivals, as well as on the occasion of great victory feats, they were borne in solemn procession or sometimes floated down the Nile from one temple town to another on a platform that was usually given in the form of bark and conceived as the vehicle of the gods going down the Nile. I don't make this stuff up. I'm just like, whoa, okay. So somebody has not only used an Egyptian loan word, someone's doing cross-cultural, like, symbolic comparison here. What the Egyptians do for an image of the god, but their image is just Psalm 115. It has an etched out mouth, but it doesn't talk. And it has little carved ears, but it doesn't hear. So here God, Yahweh, God of Israel, preserves his image in a teva. That's surely the implication here. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Let's go to the next step. I have a little something here about that word made of reeds in verse 14. Just, good bedtime reading. You won't find that translation in some English translations. They'll say make it with rooms. That's almost certainly not what it means, though, but that's not relevant for the moment. In the biblical story, what is the iconic prototype to which all later temples or shrines or sacred spaces go back to? In other words, where's the place where it all begins?
Eden.
With Eden, okay. So this whole concept of the ark as some kind of sacred space or temple or shrine, it's not just an Egyptian idea. This is so foundational for the biblical storyline. God provides a safe refuge for his image and animals who live together in peace in this divine refuge that is on the surface of the waters, and become the birth of the whole new creation. Yeah? This is not the first time you've heard this idea. This is all connected to the Garden of Eden. So we're going to go down a rabbit hole right now. Are you okay with this? Sure. Okay, all right. In Genesis 2, when God plants the garden, the scene that we're supposed to have in our minds is actually begins from Genesis 1, where God separates the waters above from the waters below. And we talked about the importance of those waters for the flood story earlier on. That's day 2 of Genesis 1. On day 3 of Genesis 1, God also calls the dry land to emerge or to become visible as the waters recede and gather into their place. In Genesis chapter 2, we start getting a little sacred topography, so to speak, of the dry land. And what we're told is God plants a garden in Eden, namely in the eastern part. So you have to stick with verse 8 for a little bit, and once you ponder it, you'll see it's very clearly trying to tell us something, but you might just read right over it at first. First of all, is all of the dry land the garden, based on verse 8? No. Okay. Is all of the dry land Eden, based on verse 8? No, because Eden is in the east of some bigger piece of land. So already we're being given 3 tiers right here. 3 lines, or boundary lines, as it were. You've got the dry land. Then you've got this region in the east called Eden. Eden is the Hebrew word for delight. You want to hang out there. And then we're told a subset of land within Eden is garden. God puts the human, he forms the human out here in the dry land. Do you see that? In the land, in the land of non-eternal life. So just more, right? He creates the Adam from the dust. He takes him, and it's actually Noah's name as a verb. He rests him in the garden. So good. And then we're told, what else is important is these trees, a couple trees in particular, that are where in the garden? The tree of life, the tree of knowing good and bad? They're in the middle, yeah. And so look here. This is interesting. We've got this image of the dry land, and you cross a boundary line into proximity to sacred space. Eden. Even greater proximity to sacred space, garden. Into the hot spot of sacred space, the tree. And what is there except somewhere where you can actually touch God's own life and take it into yourself and let it change you and transform you. But God's power and life is also dangerous and forces you with a choice. Right? And that's what God says about the tree of knowing good and bad. He says, listen, if you... actually, the first command is... this is really important. God says, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden. Literally in Hebrew, you shall eat. It's the verb eat twice for emphasis. Eat from all the trees. The first command is to eat from all the trees. In other words, access to all of the trees and to including the tree of life isn't dependent on obedience. It precedes the call to obedience. Just enjoy. That's God's first command, is enjoy. Then he's going to tell you about something that will ruin everything. So don't do that. That order is very important, I think. From the tree of knowing good and bad, it'll kill you. So there's a choice between life and death that is brought to like a culminating climactic crisis when you step into the Holy of Holies, as it were. Okay, so this is exactly where God places and forms Adam and Eve. Okay, so they make the wrong choice. That's a story for another day. And so what God does is exile them from the garden. And to mark at the boundary line between garden and Eden, he puts these creatures called? Cherubim. So how to draw a cherubim? Well, actually, they're described in a fair amount of detail by a couple of prophets who ran into them. Both of them woke up in dreams right here in the middle. Isaiah is the name of one of them, and Ezekiel. And what's remarkable about Ezekiel is he was sitting by a river in Babylon, but he is taken in the spirit to the middle. Wow. Yeah. And when they describe these cherubim for us as hybrid animal creatures that have often, it may be one human feature, like a hand or a foot. But they're made up of always wings that both keep them in their proper realm, the heavens, but then also hide them from the power and dangerous beauty of God's own life. Now just stop right here. The cherubim are heavenly creatures. Where are they stationed? In the garden. What kind of place is the garden?
Heaven and earth overlapping.
It's heaven and earth. Yeah. Notice in verse 10 of chapter 2, we're told that there's a river flowing out of Eden. It's a river. Okay, we're told a river goes out from Eden, and it watered the garden. So you've got a river coming out, but then once it hits the boundary line of Eden, from there, what happens to that river? Splits out. Now, I think this is a very basic rule of the behavior of water on our planet. Water always flows downhill. Yeah? Yeah. I don't think it's no secret. So if I'm being given a description of a river that is sourced in one place, but once it leaves that place, then it goes out to water, the different regions of the earth. What am I supposed to imagine about that place, the source? You're tracking with me?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So what the author doesn't say is, this was a high mountain. But actually, the author does say this is a high mountain by the depiction of the river. So this is a place, this is heaven. But it's heaven as it's originally designed, namely, to also be earth. Right. Not separate things, but one united thing. And which is why the cherubim are there in the garden, but not outside of it. So their exile from the garden is also a descent. They go down. Which is why when people have dreams or visions where they wake up in God's space, it often is taking them up, or it's using spatial language of going up. When Moses goes up Mount Sinai, he enters into a cloud. And what he sees up there is God's heavenly temple. Because what else? What's he drawing the blueprint off of, right? Like that. This is all coherent. It may not resonate with us, but as moderns, but it's all coherent. Okay, so here's something that's interesting. Then, when you move on to descriptions about the tabernacle in the book of Exodus, what the tabernacle design does is it imitates exactly this conceptual design, but through symbolic structures. So, Exodus chapters 25 through 30, thrilling reading. You're reading an ancient blueprint, and interestingly, you don't have nearly enough information to build the actual tent. The author has selectively given you certain pieces of information about the tent. And here's the information that is given. There's this huge outer layer that you have to pass through with the door right here. And this thing is called the courtyard, or the outer court. There's another door right here, so it goes into what's called the holy space. And then this is a huge veil or a screen that brings you into the Holy of Holies. At the center of the Holy of Holies is a box. A box. And who's hovering over the top of that box? Cherubim. Yeah, that's right. And you know what's interesting about that box? What's ironic is that our translations use the English word ark for the box. It's a different Hebrew word than teva. But the English word makes English readers put them together, which is great, because you're supposed to. Make it of acacia wood. Its length, 2.5 cubits. Its width, 1.5 cubits. Its height, 1.5 cubits. Overlay it with gold on the inside and on the outside. Are you tracking? Mm-hmm. It's the same, just copy and paste the flood, the ark instructions, and just put in acacia instead of gopher, and put in gold instead of pitch. Oh, but do you remember there was that little word play between gopher and pitch? The word for pitch is the Hebrew word kopher. Remember gopher and kopher? Right. What is the name of the lid that you put on it? The kopher. The kopher, wow. Which is a Hebrew word that can, we have these in English too. They're called homonyms. Mm-hmm. Same letters, but different words. Oh, sure. So she leads the group, L-E-A-D. I have a lead pencil. Oh, sure. Actually, I probably don't anymore, but I think they're not legal. Right? L-E-A-D. Different word, same letters. So kopher can mean pitch or atonement. Come, that's so good. These authors are so stinking creative. So all of a sudden, you're like, what? Oh, I get it. I think I get what's going on here. So you've got cherubim who are on top of this hot spot, right, of God's presence. And only one person can go in there one day a year for a few minutes to do the ritual, the high priest, on the day of Kopher, on the day of atonement. But also woven into this veil here are more cherubim. And also woven into this veil, or this door right here, are more cherubim. And notice that you have these same tiers of space: courtyard, holy place, hotspot. Just like you have Eden, garden, hotspot. You can go to the description of the temple in 1 Kings, and you'll get the same design right here. When you get to Noah's Ark, so our traditional depictions of the boat with the rounded edges, essentially it's just supposed to make a big wooden rectangle. Big wooden rectangle. But what's interesting is that it's supposed to be made with what's called lower, second, and third. Anybody? Come now.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah? Or, hot, the middle, the garden, and Eden. Why, when we get to these sacred spaces, is every set of dimensions dividing things up into these 3 tiers? Why does Genesis 1 give us the heavens, the land, and the sea? It's the biblical cosmology. It's a biblical world model, so to speak, of a 3-tiered cosmos. And because the temple is a little mini cosmos, the ark too of course it's divided up into 3. So what I just summarized is spelled out in great detail in the notes. But I'll point out a couple things and a couple quotes, and then get your feedback. So I already pointed this out. The dimensions of the ark are copy and paste of the word order of the dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant and of the tent, but just swap out different materials. You know what else is interesting? God told Noah to take food, provide food for yourself, and gather it in the ark. When God provided food for his people in the desert, the manna, the bread from the heavens, he was supposed to take this jar of it and Noach it inside of the box. And this is the stuff that God gave you for food. He provided food for you, so you put it in the box to never forget. I'm just saying. All right? The dimensions of Solomon's temple are given in precisely the order of the ark. The temple is described as, interestingly, one of the only features about Solomon's temple in terms of architecture is you're told that there's a door put in the lower side of the temple. And it doesn't tell you about all these other things you would want to know about. And in the same way, Noah is to put a door in the side. Now, our door is going to play an important role in the story. The going in and the going out of the place of divine salvation. It's really, really key. The door. Any others? Oh, yeah, that's right. Ooh, check this out. The Temple of Solomon is described as having a lower, a middle, and a third story. It's exactly the terminology of the ark. So here's a couple of conclusions, then I'll just get your thoughts. This is again Michael Morales. The ark functions, he says, as a substitute cosmos and refuge from the destruction of the ordered world. Once this mini world is made, such that it is suitable for inhabitants, it is filled up with living creatures. And you're like, am I reading Genesis 1 or am I reading the flood story? Wildlife, herd animals, creepers. Remember that list of the animals? It was right from Genesis 1. It's a creation in miniature, he says. Noah's 3-decked ark, symbolizing a temple, constitutes a microcosm of the heavens and the earth with living creatures to boot. Yeah. And there's an important scholar, Stephen Holloway, who actually studied the shape of the ark in one of the Mesopotamian accounts that has dimensions too. And what's described, it's the Gilgamesh epic. And the dimensions described in that account describe an ancient ziggurat which is a Babylonian temple. So this is one of those connections where a cross-cultural comparison can illuminate here. Except what we're getting in the biblical version is very much from the viewpoint of the prophets, who believe that Yahweh is the ultimate Elohim. And so the ark was a microcosm of the tabernacle and the temple. So there's actually a lot more that, to me, seals the deal, but you get the basic idea. Okay, so that was a lot to process. It took me like months to work on all that. So let's just take a pause and process that, and then in our next session, let's talk about it.